The crack of flesh against flesh shattered the solemn vows like fragile porcelain under a hammer. Mia staggered back against the altar, her hand flying to her burning cheek, the metallic tang of blood, though none showed, flooding her mouth from where she'd bitten her tongue. "You ungrateful little bitch," Richard snarled, his face twisted in the kind of rage that had simmered for years beneath his polished charm. "You will not ruin this day for your mother." From the shadowed third pew, Melody exploded to her feet, her chair scraping like a thunderclap against the ancient stone floor of the Seville Cathedral. "Enough!" she roared, her voice slicing through the stunned silence, raw and unyielding as the Andalusian sun outside. "This wedding stops now, before you chain Mom to a monster who hits women in God's house." The air in Seville always carried a whisper of secrets, heavy with the scent of orange blossoms and the distant strum of flamenco guitars from hidden courtyards. For the Hargrove family, expatriates who traded the relentless grind of Chicago winters for the sun-baked romance of southern Spain 5 years ago, it was supposed to be a fresh start. Elena Hargrove, Mia's mother, had fallen hard for the city's labyrinthine alleys and vibrant fiestas, dragging her daughters along in a whirlwind of optimism after the divorce from their absentee father. "Spain will heal us," she'd said, her laughter like wind chimes as they unpacked in their rented finca overlooking the Guadalquivir River. But healing, Mia had learned, was a fickle lover. It promised much and delivered in fragments. Mia, at 25, was the steady one, the anchor. With her auburn waves often tied back in a practical ponytail and hazel eyes that missed nothing, she worked as a translator for a local tourism firm, bridging English-speaking visitors with the poetic cadences of Castilian Spanish. She loved the rhythm of it, the way words could dance like castanets, evoking passion without the mess of real emotion. Romance for Mia was best left to novels. Her last heartbreak, a fumbling affair with a British expat artist who'd vanished with her favorite scarf and half her savings, had left her wary. "I'm done with fairy tales," she'd confide to Melody over late-night glasses of Rioja on their balcony, the river glittering like fool's gold below. Melody, 2 years younger at 22, was the storm to Mia's calm sea. Short-cropped black hair that she swore made her look like a rogue matador, freckles dusting her olive skin like stars on a twilight sky, and green eyes that sparked with defiant fire. She was unapologetically herself in a world that often demanded apologies. Back in Chicago, she'd come out as a lesbian at 16, a declaration met with Elena's teary hugs and their father's awkward silence before he left for good. In Seville, Melody had bloomed, waitressing at a queer-friendly tapas bar in Triana while studying graphic design online. It was there she'd met Sophia, the bar's enigmatic co-owner. 30 with sun-kissed caramel skin, cascading dark curls, and a laugh that wrapped around you like a serape. Sophia, a Seville native whose family had run the bar for generations, moved through life with the grace of someone who'd survived loss. Her brother's early death from a rare illness had left her fiercely protective of her own heart. Their romance had ignited over stolen glances across the bar counter, Melody sketching Sophia's profile on napkins while Sophia slipped her extra patatas bravas. "Your trouble, Americana," Sophia had teased one night, her fingers brushing Melody's as she handed over a steaming plate. By summer's end they were inseparable. Lazy afternoons wandering the Alcazar gardens, Sophia teaching Melody to roll perfect cigarettes, Melody introducing her to indie folk playlists that echoed their shared ache for something real. It was tender, profound, the kind of love that made Melody believe in soulmates, even as she hid her family's unraveling threads from Sophia's curious gaze. Elena, 55 and radiant in her newfound vitality, had met Richard Caldwell at a wine tasting in Jerez 2 years prior. He was American too, a retired finance exec from Boston with a silver fox charm, salt and pepper hair, a baritone laugh, and stories of yachting in the Mediterranean that made Elena's eyes sparkle. "He's steady, girls," she'd gushed after their first dinner at the house, a sprawling affair with paella and imported caviar. "Like your father never was." Richard doted on Elena, lavish trips to Granada, a sapphire necklace that caught the light like captured stars, but with Mia and Melody, his warmth curdled into something sharper. He dismissed Mia's frivolous job, needling her about settling down with a real man, and eyed Melody's tattoos, a subtle rainbow arc on her wrist, with thinly veiled disdain. "Phases pass, kiddo," he'd say, clapping her shoulder too hard. "You'll see." The wedding planning had been a fever dream of excess. A ceremony in Seville's Grand Cathedral of St. Mary, reception at a hacienda in the hills, 300 guests blending American expats with Elena's new Spanish friends. Mia, ever the dutiful daughter, handled the logistics, the floral arches of jasmine, the menu blending tapas with lobster thermidor, while Melody bit her tongue, sensing the rot beneath Richard's grin. "He's not right for her," she'd whisper to Mia one evening, as they folded invitations by candlelight. "Mom deserves better than a guy who talks over her like she's scenery." Mia would sigh, folding another envelope with precise creases. "He's good to her, Mel. And after Dad. She needs this." Deep down, Mia envied her sister's boldness, the way Melody wore her heart like armor. Mia's own desire simmered quietly. She caught herself lingering on the curve of a coworker's smile, the soft cadence of a woman's voice in the market, but she buried it under layers of practicality. Love's a luxury we can't afford right now. As the wedding week unfolded, tension simmered like sangria left too long in the sun. Rehearsal dinner at a riverside taberna. Richard's toast slurred into a jab at Mia's wanderlust, implying her single status was a family embarrassment. Melody's retort, "Better single than shackled," earned a warning glare from Elena. The bachelorette night in Triana, Sophia at Melody's side in a crimson dress that hugged her like a promise, had been a brief escape. Laughter over absinthe shots, Sophia's hand warm in Melody's under the table. But dawn brought the inevitable. A hushed argument in the Finca's kitchen, Richard accusing Mia of stirring drama, after she'd politely corrected his pronunciation of gracias in front of guests. The morning of the wedding dawned golden, Seville awakening to the coo of pigeons and the toll of bells. Mia slipped into her blue silk dress, a nod to sapphire skies, not the bridal white she'd once dreamed of, her hands trembling as she pinned her hair. "You look like a painting," Melody said, adjusting the strap, her touch lingering a beat too long, sisterly comfort laced with unspoken worry. Across town, Sophia texted, "Be brave today. Call me after. Te quiero." Elena, in her ivory lace, beamed from the vanity. "My girls. This is our happily ever after." But happily ever afters Melody knew were forged in fire, not borrowed from strangers. As the limo wound through narrow streets toward the cathedral, she clutched her phone, Sophia's words a talisman against the dread pooling in her gut. Little did she know, the altar awaited not vows but a reckoning. The Cathedral of St. Mary loomed like a stone sentinel, its spires piercing the flawless blue sky, a testament to centuries of whispered confessions and fervent prayers. Inside, the air was cool and incense-laced, the nave alive with the murmur of guests settling into pews polished by generations of penitents. Candle flames danced in wrought iron holders, casting flickering shadows on tapestries depicting saints in eternal vigil. Elena's friends from the local opera society clustered near the front, fans fluttering like butterfly wings. American expats from the golf club traded stories of Richard's impeccable taste. Mia and Melody arrived last, arm in arm, the weight of the morning's unspoken fears pressing like an invisible yoke. Mia scanned the crowd, her heart a staccato rhythm against her ribs. There in the second row sat Sophia, uninvited but insisted upon by Melody, her curls pinned with a single jasmine flower, eyes locking onto Melody's with a quiet intensity that said, "I'm here." It steadied Melody, that gaze, a lifeline in the sea of forced smiles. Richard stood at the altar already, impeccable in his black tuxedo, adjusting his cufflinks with the precision of a man who viewed life as a transaction. His best man, a ruddy-cheeked Bostonian named Hal, clapped him on the back. "She's a lucky woman, Rick. Lock it down." The organ swelled, a majestic cascade of notes that vibrated through the stone, and Elena appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant on the arm of a distant cousin. Her gown trailed like a river of lace, and for a moment, the world held its breath in admiration. Richard's face softened, genuinely, or so it seemed, as she approached, but Mia caught the flicker, the way his eyes darted to her, appraising, possessive. Stepdaughter, the word slithered through her mind like smoke. In 2 years he'd never earned it. He'd demanded it, with his backhanded compliments and lingering stares that made her skin crawl. Melody squeezed Mia's hand as they took their places near the front. The priest, an elderly Jesuit with kind eyes and a voice like aged sherry, beginning the rite in a bilingual blend of Spanish and English. "Dearly beloved," he intoned, We gather in this sacred place to witness the union of Elena and Richard, two souls seeking harmony in God's grace. Vows exchanged smoothly at first. Elena's voice trembled with joy, promising fidelity and laughter. Richard's was steady, laced with that baritone charm, pledging protection and provision. Rings slipped onto fingers, a unity candle kindled from twin flames. Then came the homily, a gentle meditation on forgiveness and renewal. The priest turned to the family. And now, a word from the children of the bride. Mia stepped forward, her notes clutched like a shield, voice clear despite the knot in her throat. Mom, you've always been our compass, through Dad's leaving the move here, the hard days. Richard, you've brought light back into her eyes. We welcome you. The words tasted like ash. She'd rehearsed them 100 times, editing out the doubts Melody had voiced over midnight confessions. Richard nodded, his smile tight. But as Mia returned to her seat, he cleared his throat. If I may add something, he said, the priest obliging with a nod. What followed was a monologue disguised as affection, praises for Elena's domestic grace, a nod to the fresh start in Spain, then inexorably turning to Mia. And Mia, my soon-to-be daughter, you've been a challenge. Your independence is admirable, but family means sacrifice. Today, as we become one, I ask you to set aside your reservations. His eyes bored into hers, the subtext clear. Obey or else. The congregation shifted uncomfortably, sensing the undercurrent. Elena's smile faltered, her hand reaching for Richard's. Mia stood frozen, cheeks flushing under the weight of 200 eyes. I meant what I said, she replied softly, voice steady but eyes pleading for mercy. Richard's laugh was a bark too loud in the vaulted space. Reservations? Is that what you call undermining me at every turn? Questioning my decisions, whispering doubts to your sister? He stepped closer, the microphone amplifying his venom. This is your Mother's Day, Mia. Not a stage for your petty rebellions. The slap came without warning. A swift arc of his open palm connecting with Mia's cheek, the sound reverberating off the arches like a desecrated bell. Mia reeled, pain blooming hot and immediate, her vision blurring with involuntary tears. Gasps rippled through the pews. Elena's cry was a keening wail, her bouquet tumbling to the floor in a scatter of petals. In that suspended heartbeat, Melody's world narrowed to a pinpoint. Her sister's stunned face, the red welt rising like a brand, Richard's hand still hovering as if deciding on a second strike. Rage, white-hot and primal, surged through her veins. She vaulted over the pew, her gray pantsuit bunching at the knees, landing with a thud that echoed her fury. Get your hands off her, Melody bellowed, inserting herself between them, her body a barrier of unyielding will. This isn't a marriage, Richard. It's a goddamn prison sentence. And we're not signing up for it. The priest raised trembling hands. Señorita, por favor. But Melody whirled on him, then back to the groom. You think you can buy love with money and threats? Mom, look at him. This is who he is. A bully in a bow tie. Guests murmured, phones discreetly raised. Sophia was on her feet now, weaving through the aisle with purposeful strides, her face a mask of controlled anger. Elena clutched at Richard's arm, torn between horror and denial. Richard, what? Mia, are you? But her words dissolved into sobs as the truth crashed over her. The late nights he'd dismissed as work, the bruises she'd attributed to clumsiness on Mia's part, a fall here, a bumped door there, the way he'd isolated them from old friends. Betrayal, Melody realized, wasn't just his. It was the slow poison of her own silence, the time she'd bitten her tongue for peace. Richard's face purpled. You insolent. He lunged, but Sophia was there, her grip on his elbow ironclad, voice low and lethal in Spanish. Tócala otra vez y te arrepentirás. Touch her again and you'll regret it. Hal pulled Richard back, muttering apologies as ushers moved to intervene. Melody turned to Elena, voice cracking with the weight of unshed tears. Mom, he's not the man you think. He's hurt Mia verbally, emotionally, and now this. We can't let you walk into that. The cathedral, once a sanctuary, felt like a coliseum, the air thick with judgment and raw emotion. As chaos swirled, guests standing, whispers swelling to a roar. Melody pulled Mia into a fierce hug, her sister's body shaking against hers. I've got you, she murmured, the words a vow deeper than any exchange that day. Outside, Thunder rumbled over the Guadalquivir, as if the heavens themselves approved the unraveling. But unravelings like flamenco were just the beginning of the dance. The exodus from the cathedral was a slow-motion ballet of awkwardness. Guests murmuring condolences as they filed out, Elena's opera friends enveloping her in a cocoon of silk scarves and hushed Spanish sympathies. Ushers dimmed the candles, snuffing out flickers of what might have been, while the priest retreated to the sacristy, crossing himself repeatedly. Richard stormed down a side aisle, Hal trailing like a reluctant shadow, his face a thundercloud of humiliated fury. "This isn't over." He spat over his shoulder at Melody, who stood sentinel by the altar, Mia's arm looped protectively through hers. Sophia materialized at Melody's side, her presence a balm cool hands on fevered skin. "Vamos," she urged softly, guiding them toward a transept alcove away from prying eyes. Mia collapsed onto a wooden bench, the blue silk of her dress pooling like spilled ink, her cheek now a livid bloom of crimson. "It doesn't hurt that bad," she lied, voice muffled against Melody's shoulder, but the tremor betrayed her. Tears carved silent tracks through her makeup, smudging the careful armor she'd applied that morning. Elena hovered at the alcove's edge, her bridal gown wilted, lace edges frayed from clutching. "Girls, I don't understand." "Richard," he stressed, "the wedding, the move back to the States next month." Her voice trailed into a plea, eyes darting as if Richard might reappear to explain it all away. Denial was a habit, hard to break after years of propping up fragile dreams. Melody's green eyes flashed, temper flaring anew. "Stressed? Mom, he just assaulted Mia in front of God and 300 people. This isn't a bad day, it's a pattern." She paced the narrow space, boots clicking on flagstones worn smooth by pilgrims. Flashbacks assaulted her. Richard's jokes about Mia's figure during family dinners. "Eat up, sweetheart, men like curves." The way he'd corner Melody in the kitchen after a night out with Sophia, his breath sour with brandy. "That bar of yours full of types. Not the life for a young woman." She'd laughed it off then, chalking it up to generational ignorance, but now it crystallized control cloaked in concern. Sophia, ever the mediator, knelt before Elena, taking her hands. "Senora Hargrove, in my family we say love doesn't hide in shadows. What you saw today, it's the shadow." Her English was accented but precise, honed from years serving tourists. Elena's shoulders sagged, the fight leaching out like air from a punctured tire. "I thought he was different. After your father. I just wanted stability." Mia lifted her head, wiping her face with the hem of her dress. "We all did, Mom. But stability isn't a man who slaps you, or us, when he doesn't get his way." Her voice gained strength, the translator in her weaving pain into clarity. "Remember last spring? When he accidentally spilled wine on my portfolio, ruining those contracts? Or the time he locked my laptop in his safe because I was wasting time on freelance gigs?" The admissions tumbled out, years of swallowed grievances surfacing like debris after a flood. Elena's face crumpled. I saw the wine. He said it was clumsy." "Oh God, Mia, why didn't you tell me?" But even as she asked, the answer hung unspoken. Because love in its desperation blinds. Elena had rebuilt herself in Seville, yoga classes in the Maria Luisa Park, volunteering at a women's shelter where she'd heard stories eerily similar to this one. Irony, bitter as unripe olives, twisted in Melody's gut. How had her mother, advocate for the broken, missed the fracture in her own home? Outside, the Seville afternoon baked under a relentless sun, vendors hawking churros and cold gazpacho to lingering wedding crashers. The reception hacienda awaited, a ghost venue now, tables set with crystal and crimson roses under olive groves. A contingency call from the planner buzzed Mia's phone. "Cancel or proceed?" She silenced it, leaning into Melody. "What now? The guests, the deposits." "Forget the damn deposits," Melody snapped, then softened, cupping Mia's unmarred cheek. "We get you ice, we get Mom out of that dress, and we talk like a family, not a facade." Sophia nodded, slipping away to commandeer a first aid kit from a sympathetic usher. Her efficiency a quiet storm. As they emerged into the cloister, sunlight slanting through orange trees, the weight of betrayal settled. Richard had courted Elena with grand gestures, a hot air balloon over Ronda, weekends in Marbella, but beneath it resentment festered. He'd confided once to Melody after too much sherry. Your mother's a gem, but you girls. You're her baggage. Too independent, too unconventional. Unconventional. Code for Mia's quiet queerness, unspoken but felt in her lingering hugs with female friends. For Melody's open pride, rainbow flag waving from their balcony during Pride Month. Betrayal cut deepest because it was mutual. Elena had ignored the signs for love's sake. Mia had minimized for peace. Melody had compartmentalized, shielding her romance with Sophia from the toxicity. Now in the cloister's dappled shade, truth spilled like holy water from a font. I've always known I like women, Mia admitted, voice barely above the fountain's trickle. But with Richard around, it felt like another failure to hide. Melody's heart ached, sisterhood, that unbreakable thread, now laced with shared vulnerability. Sophia returned with ice wrapped in a linen cloth, pressing it gently to Mia's skin. You're both warriors, she said, her gaze on Melody holding layers of pride and pain. Their own love, once a private haven, now felt exposed, a beacon in the wreckage. Elena, shedding her veil like a skin, whispered, I need to see him one last time. To end it right. The women exchanged glances, a silent pact forming. As they piled into the limo, Seville's streets blurring past. Alcazar walls glowing amber, Triana's bridges arching like prayers, the air shifted. Not to despair but to possibility. Petals from the fallen bouquet clung to Elena's hem, reminders that even broken things could root anew. Yet, as the hacienda loomed on the hill, Richard's car already screeching up the drive, Melody sensed the storm's eye. Confrontation awaited, and with it, the raw forge of forgiveness or final severance. The hacienda sprawled like a sun-bleached dream atop a terraced hillside, terracotta roofs crowning whitewashed walls draped in bougainvillea cascades. Olive trees whispered in the breeze, their silver leaves applauding the absurdity of the scene. Round tables swathed in ivory linens, centerpieces of blood-red roses wilting under the midday glare. A string quartet tuning instruments in bewildered silence. Waitstaff hovered uncertainly, trays of jamon iberico and chilled cava balanced precariously, as if the universe might retroactively rewrite the morning's script. Richard was there, of course, pacing the gravel courtyard like a caged bull, his tuxedo jacket discarded over a wrought iron chair, sleeves rolled to expose forearms veined with barely contained rage. Hal stood sentinel nearby, phone to ear, murmuring damage control to distant relatives. As the limo crunched to a halt, Richard's head snapped up, eyes narrowing on the women disembarking. Elena first, chin lifted in newfound steel. Mia beside her, ice pack held like a talisman. Melody and Sophia flanking them, a united front etched in determination. You, Richard barked, striding toward Mia, finger jabbing the air. This is your doing, poisoning her against me. Spittle flecked his lips, the Boston polish cracking to reveal the bully beneath. Elena stepped forward, voice steady as the Guadalquivir's flow. No, Richard. It's yours. The slap, the years of everything. I won't marry a man who raises a hand to my daughter. Her words hung a guillotine's blade, severing the vows not yet sealed. He whirled on her, face contorting. Years? I've given you everything, this life, this luxury. You think you can waltz back to your waitressing days in Chicago? The quartet faltered to silence. A waiter melted into the shadows. Hal cleared his throat. Rick, maybe cool it. Shut up, Hal. Richard's roar echoed off the adobe, drawing gasps from the arriving stragglers, Elena's cousin, a few loyal expats, who'd hoped for salvage. Melody felt bile rise. This was the man who'd once jokingly locked her out of the finca during a rainstorm, claiming it built character. Betrayal's sting sharpened here, in the open air, where no stained glass softened the blow. Sophia's hand found Melody's, squeezing. A Morse code of stay strong. But Melody couldn't stay silent. You've been playing house, Richard, but we're not props. Mia's not your doormat, Mom's not your trophy, and I'm sure as hell not your punching bag for modern values. Her voice rose, carrying across the courtyard. Guests clustering like witnesses to a trial. You knew about the shelter Mom volunteers at, women escaping men like you, and still you thought you'd get a pass? Richard's laugh was hollow, eyes darting to Elena for absolution. It's cultural, these tempers. Spain's full of passion. Passion doesn't leave bruises, Mia interjected, stepping into the fray, her cheeks welt a badge now, not a shame. It builds, Richard. Like the bridges here, strong, not swinging from every whim. Her hazel eyes, so like Elena's, held no fear, only clarity born of rupture. The admission earlier in the cloister had unlocked something. In naming her attractions, she'd claimed her voice. Elena nodded, tears carving paths through her makeup. I love the idea of us, Richard, the travels, the security. But love, it's not a ledger. She slipped the sapphire necklace from her throat, holding it out. Take it. And go. He recoiled as if burned, then lunged. Not for Elena but the necklace, snatching it with a snarl. Fine. Rot in your poverty. Storming to his car, he peeled out in a spray of gravel, Hal jogging after with a helpless wave. The dust settled slowly, like fallout from an emotional warhead. In the hush, the quartet struck up a tentative flamenco, guitar strings weeping, a violin keening in minor keys. Elena sank onto a chair, the women surrounding her. I'm sorry, she whispered, the words a dam breaking. I saw the signs, the way he'd criticize your outfits, Mia, or dismiss your art, Melody. I told myself it was adjustment. Melody knelt, taking her mother's hands, cold, trembling. We all looked away, Mom. I hid Sophia from you at first, scared you'd judge after Richard's barbs. But she's home. She glanced at Sophia, who smiled softly, curls catching the light like a halo. Their love, forged in Triana's smoky nights, had weathered this. Sophia's quiet support during Melody's rants, the way she'd pack picnics for sister dates that included Mia, drawing her out with gentle questions about dreams unspoken. Mia, emboldened, added, and I've been hiding too. Not just from Richard but myself. That coworker Lena, the one with the laugh like summer rain? I think I want to ask her out. For real. The confession landed light, a petal in the wind, and Elena's face brightened through tears. You should, Mija. Both of you chase what lights you up. The hacienda, once a stage for artifice, transformed. Guests, sensing the pivot, approached with toasts of kava and stories of their own escapes. The planner, pragmatic as ever, converted the affair to a celebration of family. Tables cleared for dancing, roses repurposed into crowns. As dusk painted the hills violet, Melody and Sophia slipped away to a balcony overlooking the groves. You were magnificent, Sophia murmured, tracing Melody's jaw. Their kiss was slow, salted with the day's residue, fear, fury, release, a reaffirmation amid ruins. Below, Mia twirled Elena in an impromptu dance, laughter bubbling free. Flamenco swelled, passionate and unyielding, mirroring the heart's resilient rhythm. But as stars pricked the sky, Melody's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think this ends here? Watch your backs. Richard. The conflict lingered, a shadow on the horizon, demanding one final stand. Sunrise in the Andalusian hills was a symphony of gold and rose, gilding the orange groves in ethereal light, dew-kissed fruits heavy with promise. The hacienda, after the night's cathartic revelry, slumbered in quiet aftermath. Linens rumpled from impromptu dances, kava flutes abandoned like fallen soldiers, the air scented with lingering jasmine and the faint, acrid echo of Richard's tires on gravel. Elena had insisted they stay, no returning to the finca haunted by his ghost, transforming the venue into an ad hoc sanctuary. Guests had trickled away with hugs and vows of discretion, the story already metastasizing into Seville's expat grapevine, the wedding that wasn't and shouldn't have been. Melody woke first, tangled in sheets on a guest room divan. Sophia's curls splayed across her chest like a dark river. The text from the night before burned in her pocket, unread since she'd silenced her phone to savor the fragile peace. Watch your backs. It was vintage Richard, threats veiled as bluster, but in the harsh light of morning it carried weight. He'd always wielded power like a scalpel, cutting remarks, financial nudges, that generous offer to co-sign Elena's mortgage, strings attached, now escalated to something uglier. Slipping free without waking Sophia, Melody padded to the balcony, phone in hand. The grove stretched endless, a sea of green laced with dawn's fire. She typed a reply, "It's over. Leave us alone." Then, forwarding it to Mia and Elena's group chat, she added, "We need to talk to the police? Or a lawyer?" Mia's response pinged immediate. "Lawyer first. Mom's already Googling expat attorneys." Elena, "Coffee's brewing. Patio. Love you both." The patio overlooked an infinity pool shimmering like molten silver, Breakfast laid out by the resilient staff. Fresh pan con tomate, sliced manchego, pitchers of zumo de naranja squeezed that hour. Elena appeared in yoga pants and a loose blouse, the bridal remnants discarded like a shed skin. Her hair in a messy bun, eyes puffy but clear. Mia followed, cheek faded to a faint shadow, clad in borrowed linen from a guest's suitcase. They embraced wordlessly, the kind of hug that stitched wounds without needles. Over steaming mugs, the dissection began, not accusatory but forensic, piecing together the mosaic of manipulation. He started small, Elena admitted, buttering bread with mechanical precision. Comments on my cooking, not like Boston clam chowder. Then on my figure, my choices. I laughed it off as teasing. Mia nodded, recounting the isolation, Richard's suggestions to skip girls' nights, his habit of checking her phone for safety. Melody shared the rest. His homophobic asides, the locked doors, the slaps prelude in 1,000 microaggressions. It's betrayal on every level, Mia said, voice thick. He made us doubt ourselves. Me thinking my feelings for women were just confusion he could fix with setups. You, Mom, believing you needed him to be whole. Her hand found Melody's across the table, a bridge of solidarity. In the chaos, their bond had deepened, Mia's budding self-acceptance mirroring Melody's long-fought pride. Sophia joined them, fresh from a swim, towel-draped and glowing. In Spain we have a saying, El amor verdadero no duele. True love doesn't hurt. She poured juice, her presence weaving normalcy into the narrative. Over the meal, plans coalesced. Elena consulting a lawyer that afternoon, a restraining order if needed. Mia reaching out to Lena with a coffee invite, nerves alight with tentative hope. Melody committing to a gallery show for her designs, Sophia's bar as the venue. By noon, Richard's shadow loomed again. A curt email via Hal. Apologies for the misunderstanding. Let's discuss rationally. Dinner? Elena deleted it unread. Her laugh brittle but real. Rational? With a man who sees violence as debate. The women toasted with orange juice. To new beginnings, to truths unearthed. Afternoon brought movement. A walk through the groves, boots crunching fallen fruit, air alive with bee hum and distant goat bells. Mia confided more. To Lena's soft-spoken wit, the way her pulse quickened at shared sketches over espresso. It's scary but freeing. Melody, arm around Sophia, marveled at the poetry. Her sister's awakening, echoing her own at 16, now amplified by Spain's tolerant embrace. As evening fell, stars wheeling overhead like scattered diamonds, they gathered for a fire pit supper, grilled sardines, stories swapped like currency. Elena spoke of the shelter, her resolve hardening. I'll volunteer full-time. Help women like, well me. Laughter mingled with tears, the human tapestry mending thread by thread. The climax's echo lingered, the slap, the stand, but in its wake bloomed humanity's quiet miracle. Forgiveness not for the betrayer, but for the betrayed selves. Richard faded to a footnote, his threats hollow against their unity. Melody, watching Mia and a newly arrived Lena share a sunset glance, felt the romance of it all. Not grand gestures, but the profound romance of chosen family, of loves that endured slaps and sunrises alike. In Seville's eternal dance they stepped forward, not unbroken but beautifully scarred. Happily ever after? Perhaps not fairy tale tidy but real. A tapestry of drama and devotion, woven in the heart's unyielding light.